My name is Shelley, and for the longest time, my world was vast, cold, and quiet. I grew up in a small, isolated town in northern Ontario, Canada. If you know anything about the North, you know the winters are long, the snow is deep, and the communities are tight-knit. In that frozen landscape, my life was entirely homogeneous. I was raised in a devout Catholic Christian home, and that was the only lens through which I viewed the divine. I can honestly say that for the first 2 decades of my life, I had absolutely zero exposure to Islam. In my town, there were no mosques, no hijabs, no adhan calling out in the wind. In the schools I attended, world religions weren't part of the curriculum. We lived in a bubble. As far as I knew, Muslims were people who existed on the news or in faraway lands, not in the fabric of my reality. When I got older, I left the safety of that small town to pursue my dreams. I enrolled in law school, moving to a city that felt overwhelmingly big compared to where I came from. I needed a place to live, and through a twist of fate, or what I now know was the subtle planning of Allah, I ended up renting a room in a house shared with a Muslim family. I didn't know it then, but walking through their front door was the first step of the rest of my life. These were the first Muslims I'd ever stood face to face with. And almost immediately, my guard came down. It wasn't just that they were polite, it was something deeper. They were, without exaggeration, the kindest, sweetest, and most beautiful souls I had ever encountered. Living with them was a shock to my system. They treated me like I was a queen in their home. They valued me as if I were something fragile and precious, like gold entrusted to their care. You have to understand, I came from a polite society, but this was different. Before living with this family, no one had ever treated me with such a relentless level of generosity and selflessness. I remember sitting in my room, baffled, asking myself, who are these people? What kind of kindness is this? I'm not talking about the average kindness of holding a door open. I'm talking about a radical, sacrificial kindness. For example, if I casually mentioned, oh my goodness, I'm a little cold today, and if the only thing they had in the world was the shirt on their backs, they would literally take it off and hand it to me. They would say, here, Shelley, take it, please. They were willing to completely sacrifice their own comfort, their own warmth, and their own happiness just to ensure that I didn't feel a moment of unease. To me, this was unbelievable. It was alien. In the world I came from, people were nice, yes. But no one gave up their own comfort for a stranger. This shocked me awake. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I kept thinking, what is the secret ingredient? What makes a human being behave this way? I knew it wasn't just personality. It was too consistent, too disciplined to be just a personality quirk. So I became an observer. I started watching them, how they moved, how they spoke, how they structured their day. It didn't take long to realize the source of their light. It was their faith. It was the fact that they were Muslim. I realized that their entire existence revolved around a spiritual axis. They were deeply committed to their duties. I watched them break away from the world 5 times a day to pray. I saw that they didn't just talk about religion, they metabolized it. They lived it. I understood very quickly that the way they treated me, that queen-like treatment, wasn't because I was special. It was because they believed they were accountable to God for how they treated their guest. I found that concept incredibly beautiful. Naturally, this sparked a fire of curiosity in my heart. I had to know, what is this religion that produces people of such extraordinary character? What does their book say that makes them so selfless? I began to ask questions. I started to research. But I didn't want to just rely on them. I wanted to see the source for myself. I started listening to Islamic lectures online, trying to grasp the theology. A few months later, I bought an English translation of the Quran. I remember opening it with a mix of nervousness and anticipation. As I read, the pieces of the puzzle started to click into place. I realized that Islam wasn't just a set of rituals or a list of do's and don'ts. It was a complete way of life that brought balance to chaos. What impacted me the most, and this really shook me, was how Islam connects a person vertically to God, while simultaneously placing a massive, non-negotiable importance on the horizontal rights of people. I read about the rights of parents, the rights of neighbors, the obligation to care for the poor, and even the commands to be kind to animals. I realized then that the beautiful character of my roommates wasn't a coincidence. It was a direct result of the Quran. It was the fruit of their faith. However, I want to be honest with you. It wasn't like I read one page and converted overnight. There was a struggle, a real deep internal struggle. I was fighting a battle between my history and my future. On one side, I had the religion of my childhood, my family, my identity as a Catholic. On the other side, I had this new path that was making sense to my mind and bringing peace to my heart. I didn't rush. I slowed down. I started praying to God, just God, the Creator. At that time, I didn't know the Arabic names. I didn't know the surahs. I just spoke from my soul. I asked for guidance. I said, if this is the truth, if this is where you want me to be, then open my heart to it. Remove the doubt. And slowly, subtly, the answer came. It didn't come as a lightning bolt, but as a descending tranquility. I began to feel a strange, beautiful calm settling in my chest, the same peace I used to see on the faces of the Muslim women in the house when they finished their prayers. I started to feel that peace in my own search. I realized that Islam didn't give me fear. It gave me hope. It taught me that while human beings are flawed and broken, God's mercy is perfect and complete. One day, the struggle just ended. I reached a quiet point of acceptance. I realized that my heart had already submitted. My tongue just needed to catch up. There was no drama, no noise, just a deep, resounding certainty that I had found the truth. In the presence of that same family who had shown me such kindness, I recited the Shahada. I testified that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger. In that moment, it felt like coming home. It felt like I had been a traveler my whole life, and I had finally found the place where my soul belonged. Since accepting Islam, my life hasn't suddenly become perfect. I still have bad days. I still face challenges, and people have questions that are sometimes hard to answer. But the difference is, now I have an anchor. I have a support system within my own heart. I know I am never alone, and that my Lord is with me in every situation, guiding me through the dark. When I look back at my journey today, from that snowy town in northern Ontario to where I stand now, I see the wisdom of Allah clearly. He guided me to Islam not through debates, not through arguments, and not through videos on the internet. He guided me through people. He guided me through the character of a family that lived their faith. If that family had only preached to me, if they had handed me a pamphlet but treated me with coldness, I would never have walked down this path. I would have closed the door. That is why I am sharing this with you today. If you are a Muslim listening to this, please know that your character is your most powerful voice. Your manners, your gentleness, your honesty, and your kindness, these are the ambassadors of your faith. You never know when a simple act of sacrificing your comfort for someone else might light a spark of truth in a stranger's heart. My story isn't over yet. I am still learning, still growing, still striving. But if the purpose of my life becomes bringing even one heart closer to Allah through my own character, then I will believe that my journey was worth every step. Peace be upon you all.